Hey,
What's going on, everybody? We are live. I am Adam, here again with Brick. We're going to talk about... What are we going to talk about?
we're doing some monkey business is what we're gonna talk about, and
We're
it's
going to
all
talk about some
revolving.
AWOK.
Yes.
Absolutely. Already a bunch of people in the chat, so may as well get that out of the way. Sam Rock is here. Payne's Toy Samples is here. Nolan is hanging out. Allison Troy, greetings to you as well. Mythic Dolphin is here. Thanos Copter. Quip. Where did Quip go? I saw Quip's name. I'm losing it. I'm losing track of this here. Silver K. Devoid of Logic. Scott Baker on time, believe it or not. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. And many more. Hopefully lots of people are going to tune in. It's sort of a big time right now for collectors, for collectibles. PowerCon is coming up next week. Just after that, Wave 3 of Animal Warriors of the Kingdom should be arriving pretty shortly.
Nice.
So much going on. So much going on. But we are. Did I already say that we're gonna kind of keep it tight and short this week?
You did not.
I got a whole lot of stuff to do around the house and not enough time to do it. So we will try not to ramble too much. Let's get right into it. PowerCon is coming up, and that means this bad boy is going to be floating around the internets. You either have him on order or you're hoping that somebody can get one for you. But get all your ducks in a row because this guy looks pretty phenomenal. I can't wait to see it in hand to sort of see the colors. The fine gentleman at Hella Dope Toys actually hooked me up with a connect for Tanger. So I've got mine coming from those guys. I think you ordered it through the PowerCon site.
I did, which means it gets shipped after the con, is my understanding. Yeah.
Right.
Is there a chance you could zoom in to his face?
Say it. What's that?
Do you have the ability to zoom into his face at all?
I think so.
Because I've always wondered this now that I have him in hand. I was curious how that deco worked because it looks like, yeah, I guess it's just the same helmeted head, right?
Yes, so, yeah, it is. It's a straight repaint, which I'm okay with because it's very, very different. I mean that feral beastie orange, and then what I'm very curious about is like the armor because we're looking at kind of Chunari armor colors with the red and the blue and the gold. But this blue is a little bit more feralist. The shoulder, is a little more Chunari, but we'll see. Like I said, to get this in hand, we'll maybe sort of shed some light on sort of where he fits, and what he looks like. But yeah, I mean, having Thane in hand now, I can't wait to get this guy because it's another one of these big boys. My biggest problem is that I've already maxed out my shelf, my one shelf that I had set aside. So between now and sort of the next wave, I have to create more space in order to get more figures on the shelf. Otherwise, they're going to have to sort of populate some other part of my office, but I'd rather have them on the shelf.
You can start doing sort of like vines from the ceiling and maybe kind of have them hang out up there.
That's not a bad idea. I could build like a village, like an Ewok village, but suspended from the ceiling, so that it's like floating, sort of Chunari nests almost.
An AWOK village, if you will.
Yeah, I mean that could be fun for sure. I hadn't really thought of that, but. No, I think I'm gonna keep it pretty conservative. I think this Mythic Legion shelf will actually, well, I don't know because I still got these guys. This shelf will probably migrate over to sort of my bigger Mythic display, and then that'll free that shelf up. So that'll probably be the way that I go.
Well, to come back to Tangent real quick, as far as it being a repaint, yeah, it is a straight repaint. So these are the feral beasties that I just got in this week, and so this is the older Horde Ravager. Same head, right? But the color definitely, like
Hmm.
they don't they don't feel like the same character, and of
Hmm.
course I also grew up with, Masters of the Universe, Flash, and who else was it? I don't know. But repaints and whatever, it's a different character. And they
Yeah.
look different enough, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm actually really intrigued by that because I wasn't convinced that was going to be the case until I started getting the head packs and the alternates. That I was
Hmm.
like, "God, yeah, they really do look like their own thing."
I mean, initially I was a little bit worried too. Like I kind of was like, okay, how many times can I get that ape um with a very slight recolor? But even a
Yep, yep.
slight recolor, like even with the Chunari, like the dark brown versus the lighter brown, like they feel different.
Yep.
They've done an interesting thing too, and I didn't realize that they had done it until I kind of had them all on my desk and I was looking at all of them. But they've even repainted the eyes, and
Uh-huh.
so you really get a different vibe from some of them that have, not all of them are sort of like white, the whites of their eyes. Some of them are yellow
Yes.
and sort of off white and stuff like that. So it adds some variety. And even when you sort of put them on the shelf, they could be virtually the same apart from the head, and they still feel different enough.
Mhm.
Um, which is good because I have like 4 Chunari infantry and 4 of the Horrid Ravagers, and I needed some way to differentiate them. And the heads have worked, and then some part swaps have worked. Have you for pun intended, have you monkeyed around with some part swaps and some customizing yet?
I just in playing, nothing I've settled on. I just kind of wanted
Yeah.
to see, like, as I got those heads, I wanted to sort of see what do they look like on the different bodies that sort of match up.
Hmm.
And I did do some armor swapping. I don't have anything on me, but and then what I was also doing, I know it's sort of adjacent, but taking off some of that armor and putting them on some of my other figures from other lines too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Putting them on Masterverse. Like actually what Spiro was sort of showing really early on, like he was putting that armor, I think it was like last PowerCon where he actually had like He-Man wearing some AWOK armor and
Yeah, some of the
weapons. So I've
Masterverse
been
toys. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, been messing with that kind of thing and it's been awesome. It's been great.
Now, presumably that would work like the other way too, right? Like if you have
Yep.
Masterverse figures, you could kind of pull some of that stuff.
They
I
do.
don't.
They're a
I don't.
little loosish.
Okay. Okay.
Particularly on the yeah, this buck it's a more slender buck, I know I've heard you mention that when you're talking about legions, right? Like really appreciating something that's a little bit more slender in form.
Yeah.
So even compared to the more slender Masterverse buck, because there is like a bigger one,
Hmm.
these are even a little bit on the more svelte side of
Yeah.
of
Well, and even
things.
like especially unarmored, right? Like once you armor them up, they don't feel as slight. Once
Yes.
you get them all loaded up.
But
Um,
this sculpt, whoo, like, we got this in Pale. Pale has
yeah.
armor with him, but just sort of seeing these in hand, um, I don't know, they're really gorgeous. In a single color like this, it just stands out. Like, oh, I love how the fur,
Hmm.
the furry parts with the sort of like non-furry parts. Anyways, it's beautiful. It's missing nipples, but so I don't know if these could be officially classified as mammals, but
Well,
these are
true. That's a
things.
good point. I mean, they are altered. It is altered DNA, so maybe that part
True,
doesn't
true, true.
doesn't transfer over.
Sorry, I saw
Um,
Ninja Turtles last night, and there's some
oh
nipple
yeah,
adjacent.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
There was I saw a little playset that was pretty funny. If you've seen the movie, I won't
Yep.
go into it, but it
Okay.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
um there was a playset that you kind of plug figures in, like their shells plug in, and I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. And there was kind of ooze involved or whatever. So, um, I've been having tons of fun messing around with these. So this is just the
Uh-huh.
ash, the primal ancient ash. but I actually switched his sort of skirting piece with that Feral Beastie, because this colorway to me is more House Feralist. And then I stole the shin guards from Tiberius,
Mm-hmm.
because they actually match. The knee pad
Yeah.
matches actually better than the blue on Tiberius for some strange reason.
Yeah, that's more of like a
Um,
solid blue. This is like
and
an
then I've got
aquamarine.
the gold weapons pack, weapons for this guy. I also have, my spare pail who's been stripped down, and he got the spare head, or the alternate head, I guess, from the head pack. So between the head packs, between the weapons packs, between the primal ancients,
Mhm.
we also have the armor packs coming. And the armor
Yeah.
packs are coming with Wave 3. PowerCon's coming up. My understanding, and I haven't heard any confirmation yet, but Jason is expecting some of those weapons packs to arrive in time, or sorry, the armor packs to
Armor.
arrive in
Okay.
time for PowerCon. So
Really?
there is the possibility that if you're at PowerCon, there might be some new Animal Warriors of the Kingdom stuff to be purchased. And then beyond that, there is even allegedly at least one reveal. Now I don't know how
Okay.
many reveals are gonna sort of make it in time. I know that there's some painting going on, some sort of finishing touches being put on some stuff. So I don't know how much stuff will get shown off. I do know that the Wave 5 paint masters have been shipped
Okay.
to the factory for them to use. So those won't be on show. But that just means that that wave is coming, relatively soon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you pre-order the armor packs? How many armor packs did you get, and how many more ancients do you need now?
I actually have not gone through and done all that work yet. There's just way too many other things happening. Um,
Yes.
so it's a decision of sort of like, oh, I got, there's some cosmic things coming down. I wasn't planning on getting other animals that I ended up getting, like this
Hmm.
tiger, and I got a brown bear over here and a panda. So there were just some things that were happening that like I hadn't accounted for, all the while AWOK continues. So, it's just very different because before it was for the longest time we pre-ordered them how long ago and we're just kind of waiting, right? And
Yeah.
and we've been sort of sitting in this pattern while everybody gets their stuff, and it's been hard to even sort of be like, okay, what am I planning for the next stuff? But I
Hmm.
will be getting some armor packs and some more heads packs. And I'm hoping, to all you folks who I know are going to PowerCon, because I'm not, if anybody's down, if I could get some folks maybe to hook it up, maybe. I guess there's really not a need, right? Because Spiro,
They'll be arriving. They'll be arriving pretty soon. The
yeah,
wave
so
three
could just get
stuff.
it directly to him.
the So this is why I'm not 100% certain if they're going to get there in time. He was trying to get a couple cases kind of air freighted to
Okay.
get here in time.
Hmm.
The Wave 3 stuff will be here soon, probably end of September. So we're not far from getting Wave 3 in hand
Sure.
anyway. It's just a matter of whether he can get a little bit of it early enough to get it to PowerCon. But we're a week away, and to the best of my knowledge, he doesn't have it yet. So it's
Well, let me ask you this.
gonna be
So the
tight.
folks who are planning on going on to
Mhm.
PowerCon, they will have figures there for sale. What's their pricing like at con versus say the online shop? And I know there's also going to be other
No
dope
idea.
retailers. No. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I can only assume that it'll just be the Spiro shop pricing. So like
Hmm.
$35 for a standard figure, and then 23 or whatever it is for the Primal Ancients. Um, and then whatever it is for the weapons packs and head packs. He's out of comics, so we're kind of in a holding pattern where he's trying to get a new publisher, and by a new publisher I mean like an actual comic book publisher to publish the comics,
Not
um,
self-published anymore. Yeah.
versus just him publishing them sort of as he needs. Um, but yeah, there should be product available. I just don't know what product will be available.
Okay.
That's sort of
Fair enough.
outside of my purview of what I'm
Sure.
what I've taken on
Right.
foolishly. Larry Reed is here. Shout out to Larry Reed, who hooked me up with this awesome Toronto Transformers Con t-shirt,
Nice.
because I told him how much I love the design. It's for any non-sports fans. It's basically a Toronto Raptors logo, but sort of done up in a little bit of an homage to Megatron from Beast Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an awesome design, and I'm pumped to have that t-shirt. So there was, where did it go? Mythic Dolphin. How do you swap the waste pieces safely? It's super, super easy. All you got to do is heat up one leg. Just get one of those legs warm enough to just pop it off. I used my fancy kettle. I think 165 degrees was warm enough. They're just on a ball. Yeah, they're just on a ball joint there. And if you heat them up, they'll pop off. You could probably pop it off without heating it up, but to be safe, heat it up. And then after you pop that leg off, keep the leg in hot water. Take the skirt piece off. Put the new skirt piece on, and then that leg should still be warm enough to just pop right back on.
Oops.
There you go.
I didn't heat anything up. I just wanted to show you that it is possible. You get them naked, you take the leg,
and then you have one naked ape. Yeah.
Now I have to say, because otherwise somebody's going to hop on here and start yelling at me. Yes, you risk potentially cracking this here, but just to show you that it is entirely possible.
The heat, so that, yeah, the heat isn't necessary, but it facilitates that. It makes it way easier.
And it softens it so that it doesn't crack. If you didn't soften it and you're stupid like me, there's a potential you're cracking that thing. Softens it, it opens it up, it goes back, and you're all good. And then you get naked apes, which is always fun, but they also don't have nipples and other body parts. So
yeah. Are the waists on a ball joint like Mythic Legions? Yes and no. It is on a ball joint, but it's not like Mythic Legions. It's not designed to be popped apart.
Or yeah, but it's a waist swivel, right? Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh no, you're right. You're right. You're right. But it's sorry. Yeah, of course you're right. Yeah, right here.
So it's not. I mean, they're not. The torsos aren't meant to be separated. You could do it. I mean, with enough heat and enough force, you absolutely could. However, it will void your warranty, and Jeremy will find you. Samrock said, "Are there pictures?" I'm not laughing at Samrock's comment. I'm laughing at myself because I'm hilariously funny. Samrock says, "Are there pictures of armor packs of what they look like?" Yes, there is, and I happen to have them here. Bear with me for a sec. Let me add it to the stream. So this is the Wave 3 collection coming up. So this is the Chunari armor set. So the armor set does not include this figure. The armor set is the skirting, the sort of wrist gauntlets, the shin guards. In this case, the shoulder strap plus a helmet. So it's just gear. There's no weapons. There's no figure. The Chunari one looks cool. The other two I'm way more excited about. The other two are this horrid gear pack, which has all this great blue and purple. You get two shoulder pad things as well. So what I like about the horrid one is we talked about this a little bit in a previous AWOK talk, that like the horrid tends to be like a bit more of a mob. It feels a little bit more disheveled and messy. So between the horrid Ravagers that we've got, plus the horrid Scavenger, plus the horrid that we're going to get in Wave 3, plus the armor sets, I mean, you're going to have a lot of options for sort of customizing and kit bashing some horrid stuff. And then the Feralist as well. So the Feralist, we're getting an army builder in Wave 3. And then this armor pack is really, really fun too. You can add a little bit more color, a little bit more to House Feralist. We've got a bunch of the Primal Ancients. We've got a bunch of the figures. But the Wave 3 will have the Feralist Stalker, which will be our first army builder for House Feralist, which comes with a spare head. And it's not in the pictures or anything like that. So, you know, they show the Horde infantry with the spare head. For whatever reason, the Feralist Stalker doesn't show the spare head, but he does come with 2 heads. So make sure you get a couple of those, couple of armor packs,
The
and away you
Stalker
go.
alternate head is a simian one, right? A monkey?
No, it's another cat.
Oh, is it like the lynx type cat with the long ears?
Yeah, I think it's this. I think
Got
it's
it.
this one here.
Okay.
But just done in this sort of the brown, kind of tannish brown of the Feralist Stalker. Yeah, I don't know why he hasn't updated that picture, but like I said, there's most definitely an alternate head for the Feralist Stalker.
Okay.
So, you know, how many you need for your own collection is entirely up to you. I know that I'll have too many because the army builders for these. It's great to have that because in the comics you see these great armies of figures. Well, of characters, not of figures. You see this great armies of characters, and I want more. Like I'm getting kind of a second, like an extra of each named character for fodder. But I'm getting like 3, 4, 5 of the Primal Ancients and the army builders because they're just so much fun. And because they are giving us the opportunity to kind of customize without having too much crazy extra stuff. So, but yeah, Wave 3 is pretty cool. It's basically an army building wave. So,
yeah, I'm definitely gonna get some orders in for all those different armor sets. The colors are really cool. I'm especially drawn to the ones that have the extra shoulder armor.
yeah.
So I may get a couple of those. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Wonderful has joined us. I just wanted to mention, you know, the Hexastat Kickstarter, like go order that. You know, I'm not, you know, maybe he's going to come up. I can't remember if it's been revealed or not, but it was revealed to me. Maybe he's going to do something if you've got your weapon sets that, you know, might interest you. So go check that out. I definitely need a way to sort of display my weapons a little bit better. So hopefully somebody will have a solution to that problem for me soon.
Hopefully.
Nolan says, hopefully you find a new publisher soon. Well, it's between a few right now. So I'm not 100% certain of the details and so I can't really speak to it, but they're working. And like I've said before, they're looking at, like, you know, comic book publishers that you've heard of, not some weird local one that, you know, you're kind of gonna go, okay, whatever. It's like legit ones that have been around for a while. So, all right, the topic at hand. So I thought it would be fun to talk about this because, you know, I've been talking about, you know, mythic legions and cosmic legions recently, talking about the lore of each of those and sort of how that impacts my buying and how that impacts my collecting. As most, if not all of you know, Brick and I are pretty deep into the lore of Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. If you haven't been already, check out Brick's channel, and we do the AWOK talk videos over there. So I think, you know, it's safe to say that we're pretty steeped in this lore at this point. But I wanted to talk about what influences our buying habits. Do we need to have a character's background? Do we need to fall in love with a character before we can fall in love with a figure? Or is the design of a figure enough to get us to kind of go the other way? And, you know, you buy the figure and then figure out who they are later. Brick, first thoughts on the topic?
Okay. So Don't judge me too hard, but this is my approach, and it
Okay, I'll just
probably
judge you a
works into
little
my
softly.
psychology. Yeah, just judge me softly. Um, so you're walking around and you see a person, and you're like, oh wow, they're cute,
Hmm.
and you find them attractive.
Hmm.
That has nothing to do with their backstory. That has
True,
nothing to
true,
do
yes.
with their lore, their history. Let's be real. I'm going like, oh, it's the shoes. No, it's like, it's visual, right?
Hmm.
I'm very much the same way with my action figures. And then you
Okay.
get to know people and you're like, oh my God, I love you even more, or you're really cool. Let's hang out. Right.
Hmm.
And so it's very much the same way. Because remember when these came, well, maybe I was going to say when these came out in the Kickstarter, we didn't know anything about them, but that's actually not true, I guess, for a lot of folks, right? A lot of folks are looking at
Yes.
knew the line prior. I
Sure.
didn't. I didn't.
Hmm.
What I did see were some really cool video animations on the Kickstarter, right, where they showed these things in play, but they were devoid of real story, right? There's a
Yeah.
concept, animal
Yeah.
warriors of the kingdom. That's a lot already conjuring stuff in my brain, but not a whole lot of history. Like I just need those that for me, it's the same way. Like that's the same way with
Right.
other toy lines. Master of the Universe, I got into that before Filmation arrived and it came with mini comics, but guess what? Those were inside the action figure
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that you
You have to
had to
buy it
go,
first.
oh, that's cool. Let me buy it. Oh, so to be real, the way I approach it is visuals, right? I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, that looks cool. I can imagine what that is. I want to play with that. I want to tell stories with that in my brain and just kind of look at them and pose them up.
Hmm.
And then I get into the lore. And in the past, with other lines, it's sort of been like, yeah, that's all right. He-Man's a perfect example. Filmation, yeah, that's all right. I was one of those, right? And that's fine.
The Filmation
Unsubscribe from
Fumek, that cartoon
my
sucks.
channel if that offends you. But um, but so in this case and in others, right? I'm like, oh, I love these toys. And then you find out this story in Animal Warriors of the Kingdom's case,
Hmm.
like, oh, this is great. And I fell in love with them even more. And I want
Yeah.
more. And I want to see where else this goes. So
Yeah.
honestly, that's how it goes. And it is the case where characters that I wasn't interested in, like I didn't initially back and get, right? I start reading the lore, I start hearing about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I need that now. And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
find a
Yeah.
new love. So it kind of works both, but generally speaking, I mean, these are products, right? I go like,
Yeah.
what was that? Gets my attention.
Hmm.
That's how I go. I don't
Hmm.
know. How about you?
I am I completely understand sort of where you're coming from, where that sort of that first impression thing is always going to be based on the visuals. And
Mm-hmm.
when I first saw the Kickstarter for these, the visuals were beautiful. I mean the design, the deco, the
Mm-hmm.
colors,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it was right in my wheelhouse with the anthropomorphized animals was fantastic to me. Um, but I didn't back it. I didn't I mean there's sort of more to just the equation of sort of the figure versus the
Yeah.
lore in my case. I tend to be very hesitant for lines that I'm not sure how deep they're gonna go.
Mm.
I have a weird thing where like I don't have, random figures on a shelf. I
Mm-hmm.
have a shelf full
Collections.
of a line.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until it was like, okay, there's a dozen figures now, and and then there's potential for more. And then I was like, okay, well, let me check out the comic book. So once issue one became available and I could actually
Mm-hmm.
read the comic book, that pushed me over the edge, the precipice, and down that rabbit hole right away. Um, I don't need the lore, but I also don't need the toys. So it's sort of like for me, they kind of have to go hand in hand.
Okay.
Now there are exceptions. There are figures where I intentionally buy them because I wanted to. I'm gonna have a head canon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Animal Warriors of the Kingdom could have been that if the comic book wasn't as good as it is.
Yeah.
But the comic book being as good as it is, um, I want all the figures that they've done, plus I want all the figures that we see in the background. You know, like
Yeah.
I want to know more story. I want to know about the villagers in the rabbit
Yep.
village. You know,
Yep.
I want more information about, you know, the non-combatants in Chunar. Like I
Yep.
want more world. I want more figures. I want the, you know, I want to have you know, an AWOK collection that's similar to, like, you know, a Star Wars collection where like you have these figures that appear in one frame, but the
Right.
design is just so cool that you
Yeah.
know, and then there will be like spin-off fan fiction of like, this is who this character is kind of thing,
Right.
where
Yeah.
like you get these backstories, and just like in Star Wars, right, you get backstories for characters that never even have a speaking line. You know, they just appear at a cantina or something,
Yep.
and then they just it sort of takes on its own thing. um Now you mentioned that, you know, you went in for the figures first, and then when the comic book came out, there were characters that you were like, now I got to go back and get this character.
Mhm.
What's a character that didn't grab you until you actually saw the character sort of within the world?
Okay, so I'm definitely, I know this is gonna weird you out a little bit. Pale was one of those characters.
Okay.
I was not sold on Pale visually to begin
Right.
with.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't. And I knew he was the main character and everything, but again, all things being what I had available to me in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't buy those comics immediately because I don't think I realized that, oh, I can immediately download them. And so he wasn't in my initial order. Right,
Yeah.
and so he just wasn't. It was like, "Oh, but I can get these guys," and I kinda want a more traditional monkey look without the sort of the, um I don't even know what you call those things, the things that come over the shoulders and the tails, the si I don't know, and the mohawk. It just it's like, "Oh, I get that," but that's a little more human
Mm-hmm.
than I was looking and excited about in the moment. I was really like, "Oh,
Yeah.
anthropomorphic monkeys, you know, like, and so then you read the comic and you're like, "Oh, what am I?" Yeah, of course. No, I absolutely need it. Same goes for Blight. Like, it
Yeah.
was just kinda like, "Yeah," and then it was like, "Oh, crap. Okay, add to cart." I actually, of that initial, uh, backer kit is actually where I did the thing. I wasn't in the initial Kickstarter.
Yeah. Me too.
I had 3 different backer kit orders of like,
You're one
okay,
of those
round 1,
people, huh?
oh, crap. Second one,
Mhm.
oh, crap, wait. And so yeah, and now I'm going back, and there are some things from wave 1, particularly, uh, the what do you call them? The primals, that are the primitive ancients? I
The
keep forgetting the
ancients,
term.
the
The
primal
ancient
ancients. Yeah.
primal ancients, again, that, like, outside of the backer kit, now I'm going back
Yeah, yeah.
and getting. So, um, yeah, Pale's the big one I think that stands out. The others, what were the others? I wasn't into the, Chennari Legionary either. I was more into this guy, as
Yeah,
far as the
the
army
horde stuff.
builders.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the armor, it's the face, the deco on that face, and I was all about it. And in my brain, it was like, well, if I have this guy, going back to the repaint conversation, why do I need a Chennari? It's like the same head.
Right. It's a different
Wrong, right?
torso,
Yeah. And now I have
but close
multiple of
enough. Yeah,
both.
I get it. I get it.
But now I have multiple of both after reading the
Yeah.
comics. I was like, no, I can't just have one, you know,
You have the army
and
build.
right. So those are the main ones. You know, Thane was like an immediate insta order.
Hmm.
Um, Even the characters we haven't seen, like, to go back to our to sort of being true to my MO, I guess, of what I was saying earlier. We haven't seen a lot of the folks. Cordoon, we haven't seen.
Hmm.
We haven't seen the what is the gray cat's name? I'm with that
Lexion.
Splotch Lexion,
Yeah.
but I love him. We haven't seen
Hmm.
Tiberius really, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was one that I was like, I need to have that character.
Yeah.
So
That's Tiberius. You know, being you know, the tiger. Like
mhm,
he's sort of an instantly recognizable
yep.
look, right? And I
Mhm,
think design wise, very very appealing. The interesting thing for me was that, we've discussed this a little bit a couple of times, but the interesting thing for me was that if you kind of looked at just the first, like wave one, right, which was the sort of initial offering, which was Pale, Kali, Horrid Ravager, the Chunari infantry, or sorry, the Chunari legionary, Tiberius, and Atreyu. It took a little bit of deciphering to figure out who was who, because I think a lot of people kind of looked at Kali and they were like, oh, he must be the main protagonist, right? Because he's the most sort of decorated. He's the most design work seems to have gone into that figure. So you would be I think, right to assume that Kali must be, the main guy. Pale, yeah, on sort of first impressions, looks to be some sort of outsider. He's not armored up, but like everybody else was armored up in that way. I thought he was some sort of hobo type thing, like I don't know what you know what I mean. He's like the primitive among these more evolved animals or whatever. So I thought that was very interesting, and as soon as you kind of see the first issue, you're like, okay, well now he's obviously the main character. He's the protagonist. Kali is the antagonist. Like he's the big bad. He's the villain. So it's great that the villain is in a lot of cases like one of the most appealing looking characters.
It's interesting. I've heard both. I've heard both people make the assumption that Kali was the protagonist, and I've also heard people immediately go, "Oh, that's the Darth Vader / Skeletor."
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yes, my brain doesn't go to Skeletor because the Motu bin in my brain is very, very small. So it doesn't trigger that. But I could see if you're like a Motu guy, that Kali would immediately sort of trigger that reaction. I'd never even thought of that, to be honest. So
anecdotally, it's really interesting to hear. Like I've heard John, who has over at Geek Dad Life, who now has a shop, was saying like he picked up Kali because that was the one that was like selling out the fastest. So he's like, oh, I better get one. I've heard that about him, and I've heard that about Atreyu from other retailers. So I think it was I want to say it was Ted, but yeah.
I think Helidope sold out of Atreyu before anything else. Which is why, I mean, I don't know what they bought, but like it's wild to think that it wasn't an army builder that sold out. Like the Horrid and the Chunari army builders weren't the ones to sell out. I think they sold out of the first shipment eventually, but Nolan says I wasn't expecting the connection between Thane and Pale yet, let alone that it's a connection that's not quite what it seems like. Again, the lore is just so good.
You don't have to be cagey around it. To be clear, they're father and son, but adopted father and son, right? Because you and I have spoiled all sorts of stuff.
Too late. The cat's out of the bag. The monkey's out of the bag. If you're watching this, it's too late. From now on, we're just whatever. You've had time, okay? You've had time. The comic books are cheap to get the PDF, file. You're behind if you haven't read it. Nolan said, I don't necessarily need story, but it does help. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true for most people. Devoid of Logic said, having a background for a figure allows for a person connecting to a character. Yes, that is a very, very, very good point. In the same way that, He-Man can have 27 versions that people will buy because they've connected to him, and Batman can have 107 figures from McFarlane Toys, or Hasbro can do 23 versions of Snake Eyes. When there's a character that people can connect with, you can print money. I mean, that's the thing, is that like the more people will connect to a character, the more willing they will be to buy a different deco or armor set or whatever. I'm not saying you have to buy every version of Pale, I've said that I may not buy the Gladiator version of Pale in a trade because,
Oh, really? Okay.
well, they look fantastic, but I mean, I would rather have more army builders, and I'm just not going to have enough space for everything. And I know that we're going to get more versions of them. I mean, there's another
So
version of Pale coming.
per Nolan, per devoid of logic, I 100% agree. There's that connection. It's not like, to use my analogy earlier, you see someone on the street, you're like, hey, you're cute or you look cool, and you get to know them, like you hang out more. Hey, you might develop a long, solid relationship after getting to know them, right? And then potentially, well, anyway, so there's that. And then if you go back, no, I didn't want to be too.
No, feel free. Go.
No. I just like, wait, that's too het sis. But it's the same with the line, right? It's what you said. It's like, if I'm just attracted to the way they look, I might get one, I may get two, I may get three, and then kind of move on. But the second you're sucked in and like, I like the drama, I like the characters, I love what they do, I want to know what's next, you get sucked into the world, you're in for the line, right?
Yes.
And I think that's why so many of us, some of us old folks, who were there during the days when like things were different, entertainment was more consolidated, things were regulated differently or not at all, so that we got essentially 30-minute commercials every day, in some cases every week in others, and there was only so many options. We fell in love with these stories, and so we went hard for G.I. Joe and Transformers, these things that we were like, I'm a lifelong Transformers fan. I'm not a lifelong Optimus Prime fan only. I like a handful of, like, no, this is like, I'm in for this thing. Fast forward, you make movie versions that don't look anything like it, you're still kind of checking it out, right?
But people still buy them. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Is that, like, if
you're stuck in that world,
if you get people that are sort of attached enough, they may not like the movie, but if Prime is your main guy, right? You're probably still gonna buy it, or some version of it, right? You might not buy every version, but you'll buy ones that are kind of on the fringe, where you're like, I don't know, but it's Prime, like, I gotta have it. You know what I mean? Totally. Scott Baker said Atreyu was just kind of meh to me until I read the comics. One of my favorite characters now. I remember when issue 2 came out and Scott Baker said exactly that.
Yeah.
He was like, that's now my new favorite figure because issue 2 came out, and now I just think that character's pretty awesome. Nolan says, I want Pale's mom in figure form. Good news. She's coming. Thanos said, I was going to get these as fillers and one-offs to go with other toys, but now they have become one of my favorite toy lines. I love the looks and the lore, but the quality of the toys really sold me. Yep. I agree. I think we're right there with you. And Allison has given us a nice update. We're currently at 83 Batman, 57 Jokers, 32 Batwings, and a bucket of chicken with a bat symbol on it. This is from McFarlane Toys. So,
and I believe all 83 of those Batman are going to be Jokerized too, so that's coming soon.
So then we would have 166. And then they'll do them all in the Batman 66 line as limited articulation figures.
Yep.
And then talk about, license to print money.
And then they're going to do them in translucent, and you're going to get every single one of them, right?
Oh, man. I'm not going to lie. That translucent Dark Knight Rises Joker or whatever it is, like, I'm like so close. I don't have a single McFarlane figure. When that came up, I was like,
Yep.
The one thing that I'm a sucker for, if there's a line that I don't collect and they do a translucent figure, I genuinely kind of waffle between, like, I mean, it's a one-off. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be enough to push me over to getting that line.
Yeah.
But so maybe I could just get this one, and then, one turns to two, and anyway, but there's that. There's the Force Ghost Black Series stuff. There's, well, I mean, we won't even get into it, but shout out to Kayla, who did get me a translucent SH Figure Arts Dragon Ball Goku from San Diego Comic-Con, which I picked up the other day. It's sitting next to me, and I'll probably do an unboxing video for that soon. But now I've sort of lost the comments here, and now I've lost my train of thought. But
sorry. Yeah, if we go, there were a couple of people talking about the fiction figure versus the fiction, essentially what we were just talking about. What were some of people's thoughts on that? Like, you already picked up a couple of people who were like, yeah, I get a deeper connection to characters. There's a Nolan one. I don't know if you see there about actually not being sold on certain characters until they read the comic books. 241, Nolan says, the one character I wasn't completely sold on was Kali until reading it now.
Oh, I saw it and I didn't star it.
All
Starring
good, all
comments
good.
great because then I don't forget them, but then I lose track.
You're better than me. I didn't even know you could star them, but sure.
I didn't until recently, and I thought it was like the greatest thing, and now it's like then I lose track and I don't know where I am with the comments. Nolan, yes, the one character I wasn't completely sold on was Kali until reading it. Now I'm loving him. Yes, absolutely. And I will still say that of the first two waves, the Kali head sculpt is the most disappointing to me. He should look more sinister to me, at least. But I'm sure we will get that corrected. I know that we got more versions of Kali coming, so we will see. We could get more head packs where we could get more expressive heads that might work. If they did a Kali headset of just 3 more Kali heads, just different expressions, I would buy that in a heartbeat.
And per the lore, they could even go further and do it in different stages of
yes,
human levels of humanity, levels of beastiness.
Yeah. And I would
cool.
I mean, even if we just got a Kali human head, I wouldn't necessarily need it like a separate figure. Like I would probably be okay with just that as a head. And then once you lose track of the comments, it's
yeah, it is what it is. But as far as like, yeah, the idea of these characters just based on the toys based making judgments visually, what you just said about Kali hit me too, because you're right. If you look at the sculpt of that face, there's more of a regalness, I guess, and a little more stoic, right? Which makes him come across in my mind when I saw him was like, oh, maybe this is like a an emperor kind of situation, a little bit more I don't know, calculating or whatever. But sometimes you read the comic book, he's just kind of he's a bit unhinged, right? Like he's not,
and that head does not look unhinged.
Yeah. So
Thanos says he'd buy the Kali head pack. Nolan said would be awesome to get a transformation head. Kato says just give me Kali head, hand, foot pack. Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. Is like keep the costs down. Just do the pack, so we can humanize him. Before he dehumanizes himself. Anyway, Thanos, did you back the Force Ghost Jesus? Yes, I 100% did.
I was gonna say
the original Force Ghost. He was a Force Ghost before Force Ghosts were a thing.
Because the whole thing was he came back fully.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyways, sorry.
Yes, he did come back, and then he was a Force Ghost after. Yeah, it gets complicated. Talk about dense lore. Anyways, we're not gonna go there. Yeah, that was kind of all I had. That was just a kind of a fun sort of topic. Anything else you want to talk about, Brick? Anything coming up?
Well, yeah, it's funny.
That,
well, when you brought up the topic, I'll confess that I actually, for some reason, interpreted it differently. I was thinking more like based on like concept art versus how the figure actually came out, or the designs in the comic books versus how they actually came out in that way. And so based on that, I'm wondering, are there any characters that you think are, like we kind of already talked about Kali having sort of some visual differences and communicating in a different way than maybe what's in the comic. Are there any other characters like that that you found as we're digging through the comic book that seem to like be slightly different, or are there ones that are particularly spot on?
I think Kali is good apart from the head sculpt. I think Pale is like
Hmm.
perfect.
Hmm.
Like the sculpt compared to the art.
Hmm.
You know, the scar. I think Arlen did the sculpt for Pale, based on Utama's art, and it's like it's straight out of the comic book for me.
Hmm.
I don't think that they could have translated it any better. Um, Tiberius, when he appeared in the comic, caught me off guard because it didn't look like
Hmm.
Tiberius.
Hmm.
Now, I can only assume we'll see more Tiberius going forward.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that was just a weird thing where it just didn't, maybe there's something lost in translation there. With the concept art, um, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, I've seen like the 3D renders for the figures based on some of the concept art that we've seen,
Hmm.
and they're getting better and better. Like there's some cool stuff coming. Um, there will be a reveal that I am aware of at PowerCon, like I said, and it's a great looking figure. The design that I'd seen before, I thought looked awesome, and the figure looks awesome. I think they're getting to a point too where like now that they're going to have you know, more parts in the catalog, we're going to start seeing more and more variations where like when you only have to add one part, you know, it's not a huge cost incurred. So we're going to be able to see things get updated and upgraded and improved upon and so on. Um, I'm just trying to think. To be honest, I can't wait to see the. This was going to be my next question, but I'll sort of lead into this. Lexion was a figure that I wasn't that excited about.
Uh-huh.
In hand, it's way better than I anticipated, but we haven't seen Lexion at all. Like not even in a background shot.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see Lexion. I also know that Lexion is a pirate, and I can't wait to see, you know, the Pirates Guild and sort of how
Same.
that factors in. I also know that there's some more pirates coming that
Hmm.
are some figures that I am like, of the figures that we've gotten, they're all
Yep.
great. Some of the stuff that I've seen will replace my favorites.
Okay. Okay.
That's it's
Cool.
like there are some awesome figures coming. Um, Now here's so this is sort of an is there a figure that you know caught you off guard as far as like design, but like once you sort of learned about the character, or is there one that you
Like a
kind of can't
disconnect or
wait?
something.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Mala one, at least based on the sculpts that I think Dan Mitchell, I think,
Hmm.
revealed the sculpts of those after the sort of paint renders or the
Hmm.
renders were shown. That's one that where I felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect from the character I got to know in the comic versus her. Just for some reason, visually, they looked a little bit different. So
Sure.
it's in that kind of like Kali wave. Same goes for I'm blanking. What's Kali's sort of second in command or scientist, really, the one who's really seems to be almost running the show.
Jadu.
Jadu. Also a little bit different, but there are moments where Jadu's design shifted even in the comics for me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but the thing is, they all look great. Like I'm like, I love the way those renders look. I love that way the character looks. I love the way they look in the comics. So
Hmm.
those are the ones that stand out to me. And probably some things around a little bit of the body type of Thane, actually, because Thane is kind of really big in the
Yeah.
comic. He's really big, like thicker, a lot thicker, and he's a big boy in action figure form. But I will say what I do appreciate though is that this face, the unhelmeted face, I feel
Hmm.
like really does. It's almost like it. Some of the drawings and the expression, the personality of the character at times has that same sort of like The Rock kind of like
Yeah. It does.
single
It
eyebrow thing
does.
going.
It does reflect like it does reflect Thane's character
Mm-hmm.
well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Pale's head does as well.
Mm-hmm.
Atreyu's to some extent as well is pretty good. Um, I think the Kali head looks
Mm-hmm.
great, but I think, like you said, he comes off as unhinged, and that head doesn't. So it's
No.
almost like between the lore and the figure, we almost needed one to influence the other a little bit more, right? So
Right. It's almost like going back to Star Wars, the helmet of Darth Vader, which is very stoic and calculating when he has a helmet on, is one thing. Then when you start to figure out who Anakin was, that's how Kali feels to me in the comic book. Just sort of like this unhinged, emotional, like, not the most tactical sometimes. Strategic.
Mr. Wonderful with a question. Do you think if they came out with a human version of any of these characters that their scale would be slightly smaller, say like a true 1/12 scale versus the 7-inch scale they're in now? I would say no, because I think it's a manipulation of the DNA, but I don't think that they would get shorter.
Yeah, especially if you're talking like chimpanzees, which are smaller than humans, right? It's not necessarily they got bigger because they became animals.
Yeah. Nolan said Jadu is pretty awesome. Love her character. The airships are pretty awesome. Would love a simple version of what. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all there, right? Like the mounts or the dragonflies or something. Because I think this line is one of those funny lines where once you get a figure or two, it's just you're gonna go back. You're gonna get more, especially if you're reading the comic book as well. I think it's one of those lines where once you sort of realize the potential, of how much fun these are, it's hard to be like, no, I'm good. I don't need any more. Because it is new and refreshing. Like we keep saying how it's so nostalgic and how it feels so familiar. But part of the draw is really that it is new, that it isn't something that we know.
Yep.
So that each new character, kind of builds out more story. And like I said, I'm excited to see more of the pirates. And with that comes more characters. You know what I mean? So it's like, as the world grows, my desire to have more figures grows.
Yeah.
And if they can kind of keep that kind of leveling up together, who knows?
Yeah,
who knows how many shelves I'll need.
And my sort of toy collecting habits, and some of the biggest things that I love right now aren't tied to older IPs that are sort of being revisited, right? With the exception of Masters of the Universe. And so I see it all the time. Like when you and I get together and talk about AWOK, and you've got Star and Nolan and Thanos in here, like talking about these characters, it's all like, oh my God, what about this? That's exciting. Yeah, woo. And then at no point does someone go, yeah, but that's not how he was originally. And like, it's just like, oh, bummer. Like it's just excitement. It's pure like what if energy, like, and same goes for Legions, right? For me, it was just sort of like, And when I got into Legions, it wasn't like, oh, I went to the website and learned all about the lore before I made a purchase decision. No, it was like, that's a damn cool looking dwarf. I'm gonna get a dwarf, right? And so there's just something exciting about that. And when people are talking about it, we're all kind of in this together, figuring it out, versus you can't help but deal with the complicated passions and feeling people have about older nostalgic brands. So when you say it's refreshing, absolutely. For me, it's refreshing. To go back to my analogy real quick.
Yeah.
Why am I going to go find a new version of my exes? Okay, anyway, sorry. We can
people do it all the time. No, it says the other animal houses haven't seen much of them either. The elephants are going to be amazing. Yeah, we haven't seen the elephants. We haven't seen Pachydyne. We haven't seen Bovidicus. We've like, as much as this world feels awesome and expansive and big, and there's like all this stuff that we have seen. I do feel like we've only just scratched the surface. Like each issue of the comic book has sort of given us one more location.
Mhm.
But we're 4 issues in. We've only had half a dozen locations. Like
Yep.
we haven't seen presumably most of this world,
Mhm.
and so I think I'm excited for all of that. I'm excited for more species. I know, and the thing is, again, what I know is that we are going to see a ton more species. Um, and oh, this was I lost my train of thought, but now it's come back to me, and now I've lost it again. How did that even happen?
It's that hour threshold is what it is. You passed it, and now your
Oh
brain is
man,
shut
my
down.
brain is so fried right now. The it's right there. It's right there. As far as the lore goes, when the Kickstarter launched for this and people
Mhm.
saw the figures and people were confused by the guns.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um but now we know that this is there is that sort of sci-fi element. Do the figure like will that change the way people like outsiders that have just seen the figures that have been released that haven't read the comic books? Do you think seeing the more figures come with different weapons, guns and such, do you think that will sort of change the audience? Like, do you think there's an element of like um lack of exposure for what this world is? This is more of like a hypothetical like
Sure.
potential for the line, right?
Like, "Oh, I thought this was a sword and sorcery with animals thing, and all of a sudden you're telling me it's whatever, science fiction,
Yeah.
Matrix thing, Transformers, whatever." And so does that change it? I think potentially it broadens it for some people.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I can't imagine, but maybe there are folks who are like, "I'm out. You got guns." Um, I don't know, but you're right. Like, I think most people maybe saw this,
Hmm.
like gladiators, or, whatever, barbarians, and then all of a sudden we're getting this, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 what's going on?" Um, I don't know. I think it's the Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions kind of thing, right? Like
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
and
yeah,
in that case, they've essentially said, no, they're two separate things, and never the twain shall meet as of right now.
yeah.
And Spiro instead, not necessarily intentionally, but I think the automatic read was seeing pale with like knives and stuff,
Hmm.
and um, and frankly, I also think it was what was happening at the time. There was a lot of that with Masters of the Universe sort of like coming back up.
Hmm.
The only like sci-fi property really toy wise was what? Star Wars?
Star Wars. Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because you have GI Joe, which has sci-fi elements, but it tends, especially as it started, skewing very military.
Hmm.
So I think that it was in the zeitgeist, and so people were like, "Yeah, I get it, animals, Thundercats." But then again, Thundercats is sci-fi too. So I don't know.
Hmm.
I think I don't know that it's gonna I think if anything, it might broaden it. I think at the end of the day, it's what you and I have talked about when we wanted to do AWOK Talk, especially in trying to popularize the story a little bit more,
Yeah. Yeah.
is that people just don't understand what's behind this. And, to go back to the the theory of the case earlier, as you're saying, it's sort of like, well, we fall more in love with the world when we get the story.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're at, is like, well, we know people have seen this and are gravitating towards the designs, but maybe they ought to know what's really behind it, because there's some really great stuff, some good storytelling there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one that I think rivals some of the ones that we grew up with, and then takes it to this nice 21st century place that I could like, I want to see this. I've said this before and I'll keep saying, I want to see this on the screen,
Yeah.
right? I want to see whether it's
Definitely.
animation or live action. And so I think if anything, it's just going to interest people more. It'll catch people's attention in terms of the
Hmm.
possibilities of where the story can. We see it all the time, right? In the chat, people are like, "Wait a second, do you think then that this means that humans could do this?" Right? And it only just sucks you in. So
Yeah.
I think if anything, there's only the the spreading. I hope people aren't like feeling like there's like a bait and switch. It was like I wanted.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because that's kind of the inverse of what because like my initial thought was exactly what you said. Like
Mhm,
this is sword and sorcery, but like how do these
mhm,
guns factor? Like my first impression, if I'm being perfectly honest, was like this doesn't make any sense. It's like,
yeah,
is there some steampunk thing going on here? Like what am I looking at?
yeah,
And it wasn't until the first comic where I was like,
yeah,
I need this in my
yeah,
life.
yeah.
Allison Troy, where are the cats? Well, there are cats technically, but if you're talking about like house cat type thing, I'm working on it because I really want a cat in the line, um, and I think we'll get one. I'm optimistic that it will make it into the line. Um, I haven't seen any designs for a cat, but I suspect that we could get one, especially once we get the slimmer body. Um, Mythic Dolphin, AWOK will work with the Cat Slayer, so happy about that. That Cat Slayer looks pretty awesome. I don't have anywhere to put it, and it certainly isn't in my budget at the moment, so I will not be picking it up. Um, but that's also because I I I'm having fun building some Dio stuff too. And Brick, I know that you sort of
Yay!
you're just getting into that now, and it's once you
Hmm.
start, it's hard to stop because there's sort of a therapeutic element to it, eh? There's
It
like
really
a
is.
when
It
you sort
really
of get
is.
into a bit of a rhythm and away you go. So
Yep. Yep.
Thanos Copter, I like that it's both sci-fi and fantasy. Initially thought it was I was expecting more fantasy. Yep, and
Mhm.
I think most people were. I sort of keep hinting at this, but like there are figures coming up that will lean way more into sci-fi than they will lean into fantasy. Um, just because of accessories that they come out with and stuff. There's some cool stuff. Nolan said, I found it gives me Dino Rider vibes without the dinos. Yeah, that's kind of like there's like an element of like, um, some people have less tech and more tech, and yeah. And I think we touched on that in AWOK talk too. Dino Riders, it just like a certain vibe of it as well. So
Mhm. Mhm.
Action Figs, us old guys grew up with Planet of the Apes, and the original story was very sci-fi, and the apes were more militarized in the novel than the movie. Yeah, so there is that too, right? Like where you have to kind of play to you have to get the line out before you can maybe get the people to buy into the story.
Oh,
Um Another example of that is like Armies of Ashmore, right? Defenders of Eden is a huge, massive world that Matthew Rodriguez is doing, and Defenders of or Armies of Ashmore is sort of one little corner of that world, but it was the one that seemed most toyetic to Matt at the time, so that's what he did the Kickstarter with. But hopefully, that's sort of the gateway for that, in the same way that you know monkeys and cats will be the gateway for Animal Warriors of the Kingdom.
hey, sorry that I was just triggered. Something my brain went off from Axion's comment about Planet of the Apes. I got a
Hmm.
comment, and I'm sorry if they're here and I'm forgetting who you are, but someone commented on one of our AWOK Talk videos, mentioning that they thought Kali's name could be a reference to Kali Ma from the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, which is not at all in my wheelhouse because
Hmm.
for a number of reasons, because I wasn't that into it, but also that movie came out like days or weeks ahead of 9/11 and sort of like kind of disappeared too.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but Caution Live Animals, I think, is so spoiler alert. But they find out that this sort of god that they were like, or this first ape that was the first talking ape, was named Kaliman after kind of like scuffed up markings on their cage, which was Caution Live Animals.
Hmm.
And so they were wondering if that was a reference, a Kali. Do you happen to exactly? Thank you, Thanos. I agree.
I don't
Kalima.
know. I don't know. I mean, I think there's like I can only assume that there's sort of references
Yeah.
from everywhere for all of them, right? Like it's none of this. We've talked about this in AWOK talk. Like nothing exists in a vacuum, right? When people are like, "Oh, all I want is original IP," blah blah blah. Nothing is original. Everything comes from somewhere else, and the best original IPs are the ones that do the best job of sort of synthesizing something new from everything that exists to the point where they don't feel like they're derivative. And this is a big thing going on in music right now, right? Where people are having lawsuits of like, you use the same chord progression, and it's like, well, there's only so many chords. How can you lay claim to it? And it's very fascinating stuff if you care, but if you don't, well, I'll leave it there. You can research it yourself. But the idea that like anything is new and original, I don't believe is accurate. I think everything comes from somewhere. Now, whether Kali's name comes from there consciously, I could see it. I haven't asked Jason about it.
We got to get him on soon. We keep saying that. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's my sort of opinion or my position on it is that if it is, great. If it's not, great.
It's not a judgment, just
either
geeky interest.
Yeah. But for me, it's like this is Kali. Wherever his name, his name came from his father, I guess. That whoever named him. So it's kind of like, I mean, we've talked about this a bunch. Like we're fascinated by like, where does all of this come from? And I mean, the Feralist village is called Taziki or whatever. So we were like, why is it called Taziki? Was it a lunch break that he came up with that name? Was he at a Greek, was he eating roast lamb? And he was like, you know what a great name for a village would be?
The Twin Cities, Tzatziki and hummus.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, those are questions for another day. Those are questions for Jason. I won't begin to speculate on that, but devoid of logic, I want an AWOK crab walker machine. That would be cool. I mean, I think there isn't anything that I've seen that I'd be like, nah, it's easy pass. The Gladiators is purely because I would just get more of the army builders because I already have those figures. But it's not because they're not cool figures.
Yeah.
Axion figs, some of the names and designs in AWOK make it familiar but still new, and it draws me to the line even more. Yes, exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Same with the designs, I would say.
Yeah. Familiar, they feel familiar, right? Like this guy feels like he could be in the Thundercats. 100%. It's you can't really deny that. I don't think Jason would even try to deny that, but like I said, it is what it is. They're cats. They're anthropomorphized hero cats. You do a tiger, it looks like the tiger from Thundercats. If you do well, this guy a little bit less. I was gonna say this guy kind of looks like Panthro, but it's hard to avoid it because they are similar. So Mythic Dolphin makes a good point, though, that Kali is the name of one of the three big Hindu gods, specifically the god of destruction. So creation starts again. I think it's more from that. I think it's more from that than from the Planet of the Apes.
But I just keep thinking the apes. And the reason, the argument perhaps, and it could be both, it works. But if we're talking about the prime ape in the Planet of the Apes and sort of like Kali potentially being one of the originals that landed on the planet that was human and is now going through this human to ape constant transformation, it resonated with me. I was like, oh, okay. Wonder.
For sure. Well, we're going to wrap it up. I will just quickly give a shout out to eCollectibles.ca. Waves 1 and 2 are available now. Wave 3 will be available when Wave 3 becomes available everywhere, which should be pretty soon. Anybody that's going to PowerCon, enjoy. Stay tuned. There will definitely be pictures coming out from PowerCon, so we can see some new stuff. Maybe we'll hear a little bit more about the armor packs very, very soon. And stay tuned, because I can only assume that the next episode of AWOK Talk will be ready to go sometime very, very soon.
Yeah, let me go ahead and let me address it real quick for folks. So I'm in the middle of editing it. It was supposed to essentially be done 2 weeks ago, and it's not. You know, human life sometimes gets in the way, and just all the many other things to do. But I'm hoping to get it out soon. And on that note, that'll be over on the Brick Something channel, which actually turns 1 year old on August 14th. So thank you all who've been coming to check it out. Look out for that over there. I'm not going to even tell you when it's going to come out, but it should be soon. So
go over to Brick Something's channel, subscribe to his channel, stay tuned for all the giveaways that he's going to do and all the stuff that he's going to do to hype up his channel.
Yeah, I got something.
You know what's crazy to me is that there's channels that seem to give something away like every week, and I'm like, I don't see the growth in your channel that really makes sense based on how much stuff you're giving away. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents on how certain channels grow and certain channels don't. But anyways, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the show today. I've had fun. I hope you have had fun, Brick.
I have. And
both
it's good
of
to
us
see you.
Sort of needed a little bit of a break from some of the stuff going on in life. It's always a ton of fun to talk about AWOK. So on that note, I will say again to everybody that has joined us, thank you for joining us. Whether you're here live chatting with us in the comments, whether you are watching on replay, whether you're here watching and not commenting, that's cool too. We appreciate everybody, and hopefully we've sort of inspired you, if you haven't bought some AWOK stuff, to go and get some, because well and truly this is my absolute favorite line right now, and I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. So go get some AWOK figures. If not, at the very least, go get the comics, because they are a great read. $2 a piece on SpiroToys.com. You can get the digital copy and get stuck into the lore today. Maybe not today. I don't think Jason's at his computer today. Tomorrow.
If you're going to PowerCon, definitely stop by the Spiro Toys table, talk to them, tell them that you have been watching the show, then you've learned about it there, you know, all of that. It would be great for them to get to meet you and sort of hear what people are interested in, what they're watching, and how they're learning about the line. So
absolutely, please. Go give Jason a high five and some positive encouragement, and let him know how much you love the line, and if you love it as much as us, let him know that, and let us know that. Hit that like button, comment down below if you want, and subscribe. We do this once a month. I've realized it pretty much lands the first Sunday of every month, just because we do it every 4 weeks. So stay tuned for the next episode. I've also got an episode coming up next Sunday. I will have Chris McLeod of the Full Force Podcast on again. We're going to talk more G.I. Joe, so stay tuned for that. Brick, what do you got coming up?
What do I got coming up? I've got a couple of unboxings that I want to do with some of the figures that I've shown. I was kind of throwing these up. 2 bears, completely same figure, very different deco. I want to take a look at those. I love looking at just, you know, newer figures that aren't tied to like properties, right? And so I'll be doing those in the next couple of weeks. And I've been popping up over on Mega J Retro's channel quite a bit on Friday nights, so likely just tune in over there, and I'll pop in every now and then, and I just love hanging out with him and other folks talking toys. So there you go.
Brian Brink, shout out to Brian Brink, who is, you know, diligently doing the charts for HasLab, for the Cat Slayer and such over on geekdadlife.com. Check out those charts if you're following those crowdfunding projects. But Brian Brink said, Sunday Toy Talk continues. Okay, so who's streaming next?
Yeah.
I don't know. Who's on next? I mean, at 6, our
GDL.
time, we've got Geek Dad Life as well as Hella Dope Toys. I always have to, like, screen surf to sort of catch both of those. There is honestly way too much great content on YouTube every day. So again, I say this, but like, honestly, you could be watching anything right now, and the fact that you're watching this at all is a shock to me. But I just hope that we can sort of entertain you for a little bit, maybe get your mind off, life, and join us for fun, positive vibes that we're trying to send out from our two vantage points. But until next time, guys, thanks again. Bye bye.